Colleagues, Excellencies, this year, the responsibility of the COP is being taken forward in an excellent partnership between these two wonderful, esteemed, important IEA member countries, Turkey and Australia. In February this year, I had a meeting with President Erdogan of Turkey, who told me that he's looking forward to welcome all the world leaders to Antalya. And also during that visit, I had an excellent meeting with Minister Kurum and his team to discuss the COP31 and the way forward. Also, last month in March, I had the pleasure to go to Canberra, to Australia, and I had a very productive meeting with the Prime Minister Albanese, who similarly looks forward to Antalya and a successful COP31 meeting, and also a good meeting with the Minister Chris Bowen, who is very much looking forward to work and already continue to work with Minister Kurum and the Turkish counterpartners. And I was, as head of the IEA, I was very happy to see that all parties are fully committed to ensure a successful COP31 meeting. Dear colleagues, since a few years, we are organizing these high-level dialogues. It started with COP28 with the United Arab Emirates. Here, I hosted Dr. Sultan Al-Jabbar, the president of the COP28. COP29 with Azerbaijan. Again, we have hosted our colleagues from Azerbaijan, Muhtar Babayev and Yalchin Rafiyev, and also COP30, we work with Brazil. And the main idea of these meetings is bring the countries, stakeholders together on the way to the summit so that there are consensus and common understanding in certain areas to help the presidents to find good results from the meetings. At today's meeting, this is the first series of dialogues we are going to do with the COP31 presidents. And we have high-level representatives from over 50 governments around the world, ministers and the Commission of Energy, of Housing of the European Union, His Excellency Dan Jorgensen. Thank you very much, Mr. Jorgensen. And we are very fortunate to have several COP presidents and presidencies, including the Laurent Fabius. Mr. Fabius, thank you very much for coming over and all the time your support. As you, I'm sure all of you know, Mr. Fabius was leading the historical Paris COP21 summit here, and also Lord Alok Sharma. Thank you very much, Alok, who was instrumental as a chair for the COP26 Glasgow meeting. And we are fortunate to have also Yalchin Rafiyev from Azerbaijan, the COP29 chief negotiator and deputy foreign minister of Azerbaijan. Yesterday, I had a call with the Sultan Al-Jabbar from United Arab Emirates to discuss about the general issues, but he also told me that he is very sorry not to come, not being able to come here, but he suggested that I express his best wishes to both countries and to all of us for a successful meeting. Dear colleagues, we also have the representatives from the international organizations, including Simon Stiell, the Executive Secretary of the UNFCCC, several energy companies, investors, think tanks, and others. I should also say that this morning I had a call with the Chris Bowen in Australia, who told me that he's very sorry not to be here today, but as we all know, I will mention in a moment, we have a lot of challenges in the energy world, and I think he's working on those, but he's in close touch with the Minister Kurum and his counterpartners, but we are so fortunate to have Ambassador Jones with us from Australia. Dear colleagues, I will say a few things about the COP31 and the expectations, but before that, I wanted to tell you almost 1.5 months ago, we stated as IEA that the world is facing the biggest energy crisis in the history. And what is happening now shows that unfortunately, we were right. The oil markets, gas markets are going through big difficulties. Oil prices now, when I looked last time, over $120, which is putting a lot of pressure on many countries. In addition to oil and gas, fertilizers, which is very important for developing countries, petrochemicals, sulfur, they are all interrupted. So our world is facing a major energy and economic challenge. And as International Energy Agency, an organization that puts the energy security as a key topic. We are monitoring the situation on a daily basis. And one of the questions, of course, we will see how this energy crisis will impact the energy world and also beyond that, the environmental issues. How they will respond to that. In the past, this crisis ended up major responses from countries in terms of choice of partners, technologies, fuels, and we will see how will it go and how these responses will affect the emissions, the topic of the COP31. Talking about emissions, I would like to give you a few numbers from our recent report. When we look at the last year, 2025, what happened? The emissions last year, dear colleagues, increased the slowest since COVID. Very slow increase in the global emissions around the world. And this is mainly what is happening in the energy world. In the year 2025, last year, of all power plants installed in the world, 75% of them were renewables. Renewables are getting a big momentum, solar, wind, also geothermal energy, which is very promising in many countries, but this was a major growth from renewables. The second one we see is that the nuclear power, as IEA has predicted some time ago, in last year, showed the highest amount of nuclear power generation in the history. The amount of nuclear power the world has produced last year was the highest in the history. Then we saw that the electric car sales are skyrocketing, especially in Southeast Asia. Big growth, about 100% growth. And this all helped the emissions being under a very low growth. And all of them, in my view, shows us the way that the electrification of our economy is becoming an important issue. And I know that both Minister Kurum and Minister Bowen are very keen this topic to carry it forward. So I mentioned the energy security. Energy security for today, we talk about the oil, gas security, but for some countries, energy security is different faces. One of them is an issue that the IEA has been working since a long time, which is the access to clean cooking in Africa. According to our numbers, a huge amount of women and children seriously affected from using premature cooking techniques, such as using wood, agricultural waste, and animal waste, which in turn creates a respiratory problem especially for women, which in turn is one of the two reasons for premature death for women. Every year, more than 500,000 women die prematurely in Africa because of the respiratory diseases caused by these primitive cooking practices. So in that respect, International Energy Agency, together with our partners, we are organizing a major summit beginning of July in Kenya, in Nairobi, and which is going to be co-hosted by Kenya, Norway, and United States. I am thankful to President Ruto of Kenya for presiding this process. I am thankful to Dr. Ali Mohammed, the special envoy of President Ruto, being with us today, but also to Norwegian government, being very active and supportive, including Prime Minister Støre, and the United States. Secretary Chris Wright was very happy to join us for that event. So I understand that this is also one of the topics that our COP president is keen to address, and I am very much looking forward to, as IEA, to support this process. Dear colleagues, I would like to stop here, and I would like to turn to Minister Kurum. But again, the very purpose of this meeting is both Minister Kurum and I am sure Ambassador Jones and Australians are looking forward to hear your views, your suggestions, and your comments in order to having an excellent COP meeting in Antalya for the betterment of this world. And as we did International Energy Agency in the past, we are going to support this process as much as we can from the energy circle. So I would like to now invite all of you to put your headsets, and I would like to turn now to Minister Kurum, who traveled from Turkey to come over and join us for this very meeting. And I had the pleasure to talk with Mr. Minister about this very meeting, what is happening in the world in terms of climate change, in terms of energy, and also our joint passion of football. We also talk about that, Mr. Minister. Thank you very much for bringing some good news to me in that respect. And we are all looking forward to listening to you, Mr. Minister. Buyurun efendim. Teşekkür ederiz.
Kıymetli başkanımızla
I would like to extend my gratitude to Mr. Executive Director and International Energy Agency, all the members of his team for making today possible and bringing us together with you today. As Dr. Fatih Birol mentioned in his opening statement, we have such important names among us today, including what we call our grandfather. Mr. Fabius is also here with us. My dear friend Alok Sharma, among the former COP presidents, is also among us. We have our brothers, our colleagues from Azerbaijan, Yalchin, Rafiyev, and our friends from Australia with whom we run this process together. We are all here, and there are heroes that are not that much visible, maybe distinguished Executive Secretary Simon Stiell from the UNFCCC Secretariat and his delegation, who are doing great work over years, and permanent mission representatives that do excellent work so far. I would like to greet each and every one of you with utmost respect. Of course, it's a great pleasure for me to meet with you here in Paris, hosted by the IEA. As Mr. Birol mentioned, we are holding the very first meeting of COP31 and International Energy Agency high-level dialogues. Of course, we are having meetings, so it means discussion, it means talking, but that should serve to the goal of further taking action, further implementation. So we will discuss things, and right after that, we will hopefully take every necessary step to achieve whatever is discussed here. So once again, I'd like to thank my dear friend, Dr. Fatih Birol, for making today this discussion possible. As you know, we are stepping into the second decade of Paris Agreement, dear friends, and we spent the first decade by building the framework for Paris Agreement. We set goals, we made commitments, we shaped certain institutions and organizations, and we considered the main focus of the second decade as implementation, where the decisions that have been taken so far will be put into practice and implemented. And we know that this switch into implementation is not going to be easy. The world is facing the biggest energy crisis in its history today. So we all together have to act together and make sure that we transform crisis into an opportunity if we do not want to experience such crisis again. We definitely have seen that. I mean, of course, it's not going to be easy, but the world is changing rapidly. The global energy crisis has once again placed dependency and energy security at the very top of the agenda. The necessity of maintaining energy diversification has become more important than ever. And on the other hand, all crisis in this area, it not only resulted in rising costs, but also demonstrated how critical science-guided planning is. And we now know clearly that the global economy must transform its energy paradigm. And the most critical step is to accelerate the transition to clean energy. In this transformation, we need to work together to protect both energy supply, security, and prosperity. And our most important goal is to accelerate this transition. This is exactly why we are maintaining this process directly with International Energy Agency. And in order to accelerate this transition for communities and societies in the world, we would like to do this work together with the most important actors. As I said, safeguarding welfare and energy security of the countries has utmost importance at this point, and to achieve that we must do this together. This is why I must say that electrification and digitalization are the most important issues that will play the most important role as game changers in this transformation. And our country, under the visionary leadership of our president, His Excellency Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and with the efforts of our Ministry of Energy, we have been resolutely continuing our energy journey in every area, from renewable sources to the energy efficiency. And we have, for example, tripled our renewable electricity production in the last decade. We have invested over $10 billion in energy efficiency, and we have exceeded the member states of the European Union when it comes to storage capacity. We have taken and will continue to take concrete steps to reduce our dependence on fossil fuel imports and protect our citizens from the vulnerabilities created by global market fluctuations. This is why we consider Turkey as a safe haven, as a very island of peace, welfare, and trust that continues rendering services to all parties that need such services. So, distinguished dignitaries, our priority is crystal clear. As the incoming presidency for COP31, we will safeguard the trust in multilateralism and establish a sustainable dialogue environment. And this part is really important. the sovereign rights and sovereignty of the countries will be respected. Their national conditions will be respected for all countries, so that a dialogue environment will definitely be created where challenges can be discussed in an open and honest manner. When we combine our priority with the International Energy Agency's rapid response to crises and its infrastructure for managing strategic reserves, I think it's clear that we will achieve all our goals. The agency has taken such critical and important steps under the leadership of Fatih Birol, and the agency continues, as I said, taking such important steps under the executive director's leadership. So, in this context, I am pleased to announce our strategic partnership with the International Energy Agency right here, right now at this meeting. So as the COP31 incoming presidency, we are now strategic partners with the IEA. And with this partnership, I think we will carry our existing good cooperation to a better level. In this sense, we have specifically included themes prioritizing energy supply security and demand in our COP31 action agenda. On the supply side, our focus is to accelerate the clean energy transition, and on the demand side, our priorities on the action agenda include green industrialization, and as this distinguished Fabius mentioned, NGOs must be involved as well. And among the priority topics on the demand side, we also have circular economy, zero waste, and resilient cities. As we are doing today, we will continue our consultations with sector representatives on all platforms. And you can have 7/24 access to the COP office either through the ambassadors of Türkiye to your capitals or through the contact details of the COP office in our capital, Ankara, through our partners and colleagues from Australia as well. Please feel free to convey your expectations, your feedback to us. As I said, just like we are doing today, at every platform, we continue our consultations and will continue our consultations with all sector representatives, because we consider lending an ear to you to understand your priorities, your obstacles as a very important opportunity. This is the goal of today's meeting, exactly. And I want you to know something quite clearly. Under the title of Clean Energy Transition in our action agenda, we will focus on producing direct results on the ground in areas such as renewable energy, new electricity system architecture, widespread electrification, and energy efficiency. So I think it's safe to say that we are results-oriented, right on the ground. And at this point, I would like to share another important issue in particular, as Executive Director mentioned, which is clean cooking. Today, more than 2.3 billion people in the world use traditional stoves that run on solid fuel. And because of this, millions of our people lose their lives every year. This tragic situation, which is concentrated especially in sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and some Pacific countries, saddens and worries us, to be honest. And I declare once again that one of the most important pillars of our partnership with the International Energy Agency will be solutions for exactly this area as well. At COP31, we will bring access to clean cooking to the center of the global agenda, because this affects the lives of 2.3 million people. Billion people, sorry. We should take action on this front, first set goals and then take action to implement them on the ground. Distinguished participants and colleagues, there are a few more important priorities that I'd like to mention. Zero waste is one of them. We will handle the zero waste topic in the context of methane reduction, circularity, and resource efficiency. The zero waste movement, which has become a global brand and initiative under the leadership and auspices of Her Excellency's esteemed First Lady Emine Erdoğan, offers a strong foundation for application, for implementation in this area. And this movement is not just about recycling the already generated waste. It plays a significant role in terms of efficiency and emission reduction. In this context, we expect our partnership with the IEA to conduct research on the impact of waste recycling on climate change as one of its first products, first fruits. The agency will start the research and the results will take important part in the COP31 action agenda. And looking from the perspective of green industrialization, which is another important priority topic, scaling up new technologies and establishing a stronger policy and investment dialogue between the public and private sectors are of great importance. Renewable energy integration and the management of critical minerals also form the fundamental building blocks of this transformation, of this transition. Looking at the topic of climate resilient cities, and we have just discussed that with my dear friend Dan Jorgensen, the Commissioner for Energy and Housing. We definitely attach importance to resilient cities. We see our cities as the areas where we are seeing the most visible results of the energy transition. And for Türkiye, cities are also a strong area for implementation. After the earthquake disaster that we were hit 3 years ago, 500,000 housing units were reconstructed from zero ground to be turnkey delivered to the survivors of this disaster. We also have social housing projects, urban transformation projects. I think this indicates how serious we are as a concrete example. And in this sense, our earthquake experience has clearly demonstrated how critical resilient infrastructure, safe construction, and local capacity are. We also have a clear stance on the financing aspect, which is another priority topic for us in our action agenda. The commitments that are made under the COP29 Baku finance goal will be followed up during our presidency as well. And the current problem, as we very well know, is the gap between goals set and actual implementation of them. This gap must be closed by providing support to the right projects and supporting them with appropriate financing structures. We are working on a new mechanism here to match the right projects with the right financing and have access to financing as easier as possible. Distinguished dignitaries, no matter how challenging the conditions might be, what brought us today, what enabled us to make it to today as fundamental values are dialogue, international cooperation, and our belief in multilateralism. As the COP31 presidency, we have come before you today with a concrete agenda. Therefore, our expectation, as kindly and humbly from you today, is also to provide concrete and implementable proposals, ideas. For example, what is the purpose of electrification in energy production, transportation, and industry? Or where are the breaking points or gaps in the chains ranging from network infrastructure to technology access, from financing to regulation? All our friends here, please know that and all the representatives of the foreign missions, our goal is to lend an ear to you, to listen to you in answering the question, what are your expectations from COP31? Because we are here to listen to your answers, questions if you have any, offers, ideas, to bring the results of, so that we can bring the results of this discussion, this dialogue to Antalya, to the action plans of the countries and to the flow of financing. We definitely kindly once again would like to invite you to Antalya. It will be a beautiful COP. As you know, first of all, pre-COP will take place in the Pacific. Thanks to our great partnership with Australia. So I kindly urge each and every one of you to take part in this process, to participate in the COP meeting. personally and share your valuable insight, your ideas, your contributions with us. I hope that today's meeting will be a fruitful one for all of us, and I conclude my remarks by extending my gratitude to distinguished Fatih Birol and his team, and greet you all with utmost respect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Dear colleagues, we heard the priorities of the COP31 presidency, ranging from electrification to clean cooking. And of course, it was a real privilege for me as head of the IEA to hear that Turkey, following the other COP presidencies, announced IEA as a strategic partner in this journey. Before going to Australia, may I also, Mr. Minister, acknowledge your beyond climate great efforts after the major earthquake in Hatay to address the accommodation problem for thousands of people in the region. Thank you very much for that, and again, welcome to IEA. Now, I don't want to say welcome to Australia because this building belongs to the Australian government. So this is, but still, Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much. Thank you very much for all of this process being with us, your Prime Minister, your Minister, and yourself. And I am only very happy to hear that these two distinguished members of the IEA working so nice together, and we can make a modest contribution. Over to you, Mr. Ambassador.
Thanks so much, dear Fatih. Look, I want to start by thanking you, Minister Kurum, for your leadership and your very clear articulation just now of the priorities for Turkey in the presidency of this critical COP. Electrification, clean cooking, zero waste, and finance. I think these are themes that we can all gather around. And I also want to join with you in recognising our esteemed ministers who've joined us here today, together with our excellencies, ambassadors from various missions, and the heroes, as you described them, of COPs, past and present. I join with you in recognising them. I bring warm greetings from Minister Chris Bowen, who will be president of the negotiations. He deeply regrets that he can't be joining you here today, but as I'm sure you all understand, the crisis in the Middle East and the impact on oil and transport, and particularly aviation, has required him to attend to some matters back home. Dear Fatih, I want to thank you for your ongoing work, particularly for the trip you made down to Australia and then on to Japan just recently. You talked about the excellent meeting that you had with Chris Bowen and the Prime Minister. What you didn't tell people is this. I mean, when most people come to Australia, they search out the Harbour Bridge, the Opera House, and some kangaroos. Fatih, you didn't do that. You went into the belly of the beast, which was to engage in armed combat with the Australian Press Gallery at the National Press Club. This is a full contact sport. It went for an hour and you did very, very well. And I think it was a triumph for the things that we all believe in taking that important message of the IEA to Australia and around the world. Look, Minister Kurum and Fatih, you have talked about the challenges that multilateralism is facing and the pressures that we're all under, but I think the work of the IEA over the last 2 months stands as a shining example of multilateralism at its best. Enacting a treaty, operationalising that treaty, and ensuring that we can provide oil security, working collectively to provide a greater level of security that simply would not exist without your leadership and without the work of the IEA, and we thank you for it. You've both referred to the conflicts in the Middle East and the impact that is having on oil prices. They're significantly elevated and very volatile, and it's affecting us all. I need not talk to any of our Europeans about the impact that has. You've lived through this after the war in Ukraine, but for those of us in the Pacific and Southeast Asia, we are really facing the pointy end of it. You noted, and you've noted many times, that after the oil shocks of the 1970s, Fatih, it caused a major shift. The formation of the IEA, the treaty that underpins it, but also changing in the way motor vehicles are built, changing in fuel efficiency, changes in the way, in fact, it kickstarted the work in the area of renewable energy. And we're here again. We are here again. We've come a long, long way since then. Renewable technologies, storage technologies have matured dramatically in capability and reliability and price. And all of that means that we are better placed to deal with the storms that we are now facing. The remarkable progress that Fatih, you have referred to over the last couple of years is extraordinary. And as we go into what will be a challenging COP, it is worth us recognising and celebrating the progress that we have made. In 2025, the world's wind and solar farms generated more electricity than coal plants for the first time ever. Worth recognising, worth acknowledging. Global clean energy investment is now double that of fossil fuel investment and is continuing to grow, hitting a record 2.3 trillion euros last year, growing 8% from 2024. One of the largest source of energy sector jobs worldwide. And you know, the IEA analysis from last year showed that it's expected the global shift to electric vehicles, which has been dramatic. And I'm sure many of you in your countries have recognised this. There's been a huge spike in electric vehicle purchasing and ordering over the last 2 months. But your data, Fatih, shows that that electric vehicle purchasing and transition is going to reduce oil demand by 5 million barrels by 2030. All of these significant progress, they give us hope that we can achieve things when we turn our mind to it and work together. The message that Chris Bowen and the Australian government wanted to deliver is, as challenging as the times are, the clean energy solution is the solution to the energy crisis that we are now engaged in. And consumers are recognising that through the uptake in renewable energy and electric vehicles, and businesses through their transition, and industry through their transition are recognising this as well. So where do we stand? Global progress on electrification has been good, but it's insignificant. It's insufficient, I correct myself. It is insufficient. Your analysis at the IEA and ARENA and others show that under 1.5% in net zero scenarios, electricity has to account for 35% of global financial energy consumption by 2035. That is up from where it is today at 21%. So we need to get from 21% to 35% by 2035, and then to over 50% by 2050. So we have made achievement, but we've got much more to do. Electrification, as Minister, you have pointed out, is the cornerstone to that energy transition. It directly supports the COP28 objective of tripling and doubling goals while unlocking system-wide benefits. And as many have already commented, and we fully agree, this is also about energy sovereignty. Electrification can underpin energy independence through reduced reliance on fossil fuel imports, particularly where combination with renewable generation is enabling countries to better withstand supply shocks and geopolitical volatility. We are emphasising the circumstances in the Pacific. Nowhere in the world is this problem more acute. It's at the very end, and it is the most remote from global supply chains, small island developing states in the Pacific, and we feel a deep responsibility for their fate. So electrification demand at scale requires the right supply side foundations, investment, as you have referred to, Minister. We're so pleased to see that that is going to be a key theme of the conference. Clean energy, smart grids, transmission and energy storage are all are all critical. Can I just make this point? I love that American saying where we've got to be able to walk and chew gum. Yes, maintaining our oil and traditional and fossil fuel supplies are critical as we make this transition, but we should have no doubt about where our destination is. In Australia, we also have a saying that if you talk the talk, you've got to walk the walk. And we have been walking the walk. We have doubled renewables in 6 years, and we're on track to have 82% electrification by 2030. Our experience shows that energy storage strengthens flexibility and reliability as the clean energy generation grows. And as governments, we've got a role to play in creating the conditions and sometimes providing and de-risking the finance to enable deployment at scale. Our shared prosperity lies in working together on these challenges to electrify end users, modernise our grids, which is a huge job everywhere, and expand energy access, including energy storage. Another priority is global industrial carbonisation. I was very pleased to hear you refer to this as well, Minister Kurum. This includes decarbonising in Australia, our heavy industries, our domestic industries, while leveraging our renewable energy and mineral resources to supply clean energy and energy-intensive products to the world. Friends, as renewables become more and more central to energy security, they have to become increasingly central to the business of the IEA, which is why we're so pleased to hear you, Minister, announce that critical partnership today with the IEA as a part of your presidency through COP31. In December, in Australia, I've talked about us walking the walk, an important point because I've heard at these forums before delegations point out quite rightly that we won't keep our populations and our people together on this pathway unless we can, on the one hand, deal with the transition and on the other hand, deal with energy price. I have good news on this front that in Australia, in the December 2025 quarter, wholesale electricity prices in our national electricity market fell, not by a small amount, but by 43%. This is attributable to the electrification process and the renewable energy contribution to our energy grid. So we can now show with real-world results that storing low-cost, low-emissions electricity through the day and releasing it to meet demands during the evening is an effective strategy going towards our climate objectives, but it's also an effective strategy in terms of energy affordability. No one can sanction the wind or stop the sun from shining. These are eternal resources. Turkey and Australia are proud to be working together this year to deliver COP31. And while working closely and putting a focus on the Pacific, where this is not a future event, but a present existential crisis that our Pacific neighbours are living through, we are going to ensure, working together, we can deliver real outcomes. Our innovation model reflects our solidarity and our innovation model in the partnership that we have got. Very, very successful partnership working well with Turkey is a model of solidarity, multilateralism, and working together to face into our shared challenge. And our approach will be anchored in the principles of dialogue, of consensus, and crucially, action. We're determined to ensure the COP31 is inclusive, it's pragmatic and action-focused and brings together our highest shared ambitions. Paris is working, dear Laurent Fabius, it is working, but we have to work faster and put more effort in. Through our shared commitments, we've brought global temperature projections down from 4 degrees of warming to 2.5, and that progress matters. We have to prove our action works. We are now seeing an irreversible trend in the clean energy transition. Technologies are becoming mature and investment flows into clean energy are outpacing fossil fuels. We've agreed ambitious goals to triple renewable energy, double energy efficiency, and transition away from fossil fuels in our energy systems, and we're strongly supporting Turkey's COP31 action agenda and their continuation of the Brazilian architecture. Our priority areas where we hope to generate strong outcomes: acceleration of clean energy, that means electrification, grids and storage, mobilizing clean energy investment, growing green industries, and elevating the Pacifica priorities. Committed to working with you, excited about the dialogue today. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share some thoughts.
Very many thanks, Mr. Ambassador. I think it is excellent to hear from your perspectives, from Austria's perspective, what are the priorities for you. If I can, I want to underline 2 points, how great the cooperation between these two countries in two parts of the world, but with the similar way of thinking, especially putting the electrification is at the heart of the COP31. Just to give you one number, this is our job at the IEA. Last year, global electricity demand increased almost 2.5 times faster than global energy demand. Shows that electricity demand is growing very strongly for many reasons, because of the air conditioning, because of the data centers for AI, and also for electric cars, and it will grow. And I think how the electricity generation will be met will be the key question here. So very many thanks to Australia for this partnership. Now I will turn to a couple of distinguished colleagues to give us some brief remarks. Some of the speakers I already mentioned, but I would like to start with His Excellency Laurent Fabius, the former Prime Minister of France, COP21 President, and currently the chair of the Circle of COP Presidents here. And as we all know, we all talk about the Paris Agreement, and it was thanks to Mr. Fabius that this agreement had the signature of all the countries in the world. Thank you very much, Mr. Fabius. Over to you, please.
Thank you. 5 minutes, 5 points. The first one is implementation. Minister Kurum, Ambassador Jones have insisted on the necessity that COP31 would be a COP of implementation. They're right. They're completely right. But implementing, obviously, will mean that some traditional subject will be discussed. They have to be discussed, and they're not always easy. Transitioning away, adaptation, just transition, preparation of COP32 and COP33, the role of businesses and cities as well, and last but not least, finance. Because without financial concrete steps, there is no implementation. And it's all talk, implementation. But I fully agree with what has been said, and the fact that the action agenda has been chosen as the basic element goes rightly in this direction. Second point, methane. Methane. We all know that methane is the faster way of trying to diminish the global warming. Progress has been made. Pledges do exist. Efficient techniques too. But we know that it is not enough. And Minister Kurum has insisted very rightly on the zero waste program. particularly with its consequences related to methane. But the question of methane is much more large than that. And to speak clearly, I think that methane should be one of the stars of COP31. 3, science. Let's be clear. Science and scientists are under attack. Not all of them, fortunately, not everywhere, but in various countries and by influential persons. We know that without science, nothing is possible. How can we act for science at COP31? There are many ways for developing organized and visible actions within negotiation, with civil society, public communication, push for stronger national commitments, organize scientific presence on site, counter disinformation. But you have asked us to give our views and our wishes. At the end of COP31, I think science and scientists must be reinforced. That's an important point. For Paris Agreement, well, there are many things which have been included in the Paris Agreement, but fundamentally, the very basis of Paris Agreement is a triangle. NDC, GST, BTR. As far as NDCs are concerned, we know that the balance sheet is reasonably good, but still there are improvements which are necessary. We need to get more numerous and more ambitious NDCs. As far as global stocktake is concerned, we know that it must be delivered in 2 years at COP33. But we know too that there are difficulties and resistances. And what's more, it raises the question of science. In particular, within IPCC. And we must try to solve them because GST is very important. It's the moment where we should see where we are really. And BTR, biennial transparency reports, they are crucial too. Many countries have delivered BTR, which are good, but many countries as well have not done really this exercise. And we know that under UN, BTR must receive the same attention as NDCs and GST. In other words, in COP31, I hope that COP will be able to insist on this fundamental triangle, NDCs, BTR, GST. And my 5th point is for congratulations to IEA and to you, Fatih Birol, for the work you have carried out over the past few months. Your action has been precise, clever, and decisive. And we could say that without IEA's strategic achievements, the current upheavals would have been far more severe. Therefore, it has been said that there is now a strategic partnership with Turkey. But you, in IEA, you have a strategic partnership with important results. Therefore, congratulations, Fatih. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fabius. This is, for me, it is very humbling to hear such words from you and, of course, from my colleagues as well. May I now go to Lord Sharma, who was the COP26 president, and it was one of the major outcomes in the COP26 was the Glasgow Climate Pact, and we are all looking forward to hear from Lord Sharma, please.
Thank you, Fatih, and thank you for hosting us. I want to echo what my friend Laurent Fabius has said about your personal leadership and the IEA's leadership in this really very challenging time. You were incredibly helpful to us in COP26. You've helped other COP presidencies, and I know both Turkey and Australia will benefit from the support that you're providing. I also want to say to my dear friend, Minister Kurum, welcome to the hot seat. You're looking very calm and collected today, but I tell you, as you get to November, that's going to change. I think both Laurent Fabius and I can confirm that that will change. But you've set out a compelling agenda, a really concrete agenda, and of course to our friend Minister Bowen as well, who will be leading on the negotiations. We wish him all the best as well. Fatih, if you recall, in COP26, you basically totted up, the IEA totted up all the commitments that were made. And you concluded that if we delivered collectively on all the commitments we were making, we were heading towards 1.8 degrees of warming above pre-industrial levels. Well, I have to say to you, friends, 5 years on, things are looking much bleaker than they were. We breached 1.5 last year and the year before, temporarily. And frankly, the prognosis is not good. Now, I don't want to be the sort of skunk at the party, and I do want to acknowledge that sort of progress has been made. And I think both Fatih, you and Stephen talked about more electricity being generated from renewables and coal. And I've sort of particularly smiled when I read that in your report. For those of us like Dan Jorgensen and Simon Stiell who fought very hard to have language on coal phase down at COP26, I think that's incredibly encouraging. EVs, the financing, I think the figure you mentioned was 2.3 trillion euros, Stephen. But the reality, I have to say to us, is that 2.3 trillion is still 3 times less than kind of we need by 2030. And that money has been going into clean energy, which is great. It's been going into electric vehicles, but only 10% of that has gone into hard to abate sectors. And we need to focus on those as well. And I think the other challenge is that of that money, over 80% has gone in East Asia, mostly China and Europe, and also in the US. If you take out China, developing countries and LDCs represent 30 to 35% of global emissions, and we are not getting the money there where it's needed. If you want to transition away from fossil fuels, you need to provide the finance for people to do that in terms of investing in clean energy. So I think, Minister Kurum, you're absolutely right in making climate finance a central priority for COP31, and you talked about that in your remarks. Just a couple of sort of suggestions, what I think we ought to focus on. Firstly, I think we need to have a real focus on increasing blended finance. We've talked about this with the MDBs year after year, and we're still nowhere near the scale that we should be. I also think that the MDBs collectively have to step up and do a lot more in terms of guarantees. I mean, none of this incremental stuff. By the way, the great thing with not being in government anymore, I can say exactly what I think, rather than sort of reading some notes that someone else has prepared for me. So that needs to happen. We need to make sure there's grant support to help developing nations look at their regulatory regimes, which can then give confidence to the private sector to invest. And there will be some people who will say, and they've said it in the past, that the COPs are not the place for this nitty-gritty discussion on finance. That's wrong. That is totally wrong. It is absolutely the place where we ought to be having discussion about these details on finance. And I really welcome the circle of finance ministers that was set up by our Brazilian friends. And I hope, Mr. Kurum, that is something that you will continue to take forward. One final thing I want to say is that one of the things that we're doing in the UK is focusing on transition finance. So I currently chair the UK's Transition Finance Council. And what I would request is for you to look, please, very closely to make transition finance a key strand of the work that you're doing as part of your finance agenda. And we are ready to help you. There's a lot of engagement we're doing internationally. I know you and I are going to have a discussion. But if we can do something through that work to advance money going to hard to abate sectors, that will make a huge difference. Thank you.
Very many thanks, Lord Sharma, and thank you very much also for your leadership as the COP president, as the UK government minister, but also beyond at your current capacities, your work so much appreciated. Now, may I move to the COP29, the Azerbaijan? We are very fortunate to have His Excellency Rafiyev with us, who is the lead negotiator and the Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs. And as you may remember, dear colleagues, we talk about today on electrification, but one of the topics it was discussed and the pledges were made was on the grids. We need a lot of grids and the storage for that, and COP29, I think, put a lot of emphasis on that, as well as the achievements and the finance goal, as we all know. Can I now turn to His Excellency Mr. Rafiyev? Yalchin.
Thank you, dear Dr. Birol, dear Minister Kurum, dear representatives of former, present, and future COP presidencies, Executive Secretary of UNFCCC, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure, first of all, to join this meeting, the first meeting of COP31 IEA High-Level Energy Transition Dialogue. And I would like to express my warmest thanks to our friend, Dr. Fatih Birol, and his team for convening this very timely meeting. As mentioned by Dr. Birol, we jointly organized a series of such dialogues during COP29 presidency, culminating in a leaders level dialogue at COP29. We also commend the COP31 presidency of Turkey and Australia under the leadership of Minister Kurum for its proactive engagement and inclusive consultations thus far, and this presidency's early efforts to foster dialogue and maintain momentum on implementation-oriented climate actions, and a positive signal for continuity and cooperation on the road to COP31. Colleagues, at a time when the global climate agenda is being tested by geopolitical tensions and volatility in energy markets, our primary message remains clear. Multilateralism delivers, and the transition towards a cleaner and more sustainable energy system is not only necessary, but also underway and irreversible. In this context, the ongoing disruptions in energy markets reinforce the urgency of scaling up investments in renewable energy and energy efficiency. However, investing solely on production side is not enough. Parallelly, adequate infrastructure, namely installing necessary grids and storage systems, must be put in place in order to complement the production, supply, deliver cycle. These are not only climate priorities, but also essential components of long-term energy security and economic stability. Against this backdrop, at COP29, as mentioned by Dr. Birol, we place strong emphasis on practical delivery mechanisms. Initiatives such as the COP29 Global Energy Storage and Grids Pledge were designed to support countries to create enabling conditions for implementation. It aims to accelerate investment, strengthen cooperation, and provide concrete pathways to translate ambition into measurable outcomes. Ladies and gentlemen, Azerbaijan, with abundant and affordable conventional energy resources, is also heavily investing on clean energy production, storage, and delivery systems. Our solar and wind projects are already saving significant volumes of natural gas while reducing emissions. Looking ahead, we aim to reach 8 gigawatts of installed solar, wind, and hydropower capacity by 2032, supported by regional green energy corridors linking the Caspian Sea to Europe. This represents an 8-fold increase over current capacity and significantly exceeds the global stocktake's call to triple renewable energy. In parallel, Azerbaijan joined the Oil and Gas Methane Partnership in 2024, and our largest fossil fuel producer, SOCAR's decarbonization strategy aims to reach net zero by 2050. Looking ahead to COP31, stepping stones throughout the year will be essential. In this regard, the COP presidency's Troika will play a key bridging role. The Belém Mission to 1.5 report is expected to reflect on accelerating implementation, international cooperation, and investment. We are working with COP30 and COP31 presidencies to advance this mandate, and as a result of our engagement throughout the year, a report will be presented. Equally important is the role of the action agenda as a complementary track to formal negotiations. It has a potential to serve as a delivery engine. With trust, and we heard it already from Minister Kurum this morning, that the COP31 presidency will build on the foundation laid by the previous year's stocks of actions and further strengthen the action agenda as a tool for accelerating systemic progress. Finally, Excellencies, it's important to underline that real action-oriented progresses will be defined by what we implement, not but what we announce. With the Paris Agreement's policy cycle now fully in motion, the tools are in place and the direction is clear. What is required now is sustained cooperation, consistency, and a strong focus on delivery to drive genuine implementation. In this context, COP31 presents another important opportunity to advance the implementation agenda. Let's carry on this momentum forward together towards COP31. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rafiyev. And I think all the speakers follow the point which was made by Minister Kurum and Ambassador Jones, implementation. So again, we heard from the Deputy Minister Rafiyev. Thank you very much for that. And thank you very much for the strong cooperation we had during your presidency, Mr. Minister. So, dear colleagues, may I now turn to Simon Stiell, who is the Secretary General of the UNFCCC. This is a very important organization that plays a key role in the COP process. We were together, Simon, in last week in Germany, together with Bundeskanzler Merz, and there was a very good discussion over there, and we are looking forward to hear your views. Over to you, Mr. Stiell.
Thank you very much, Fatih, and thank you for your continued leadership in driving these dialogues forward. And Murat, Stephen, absolute pleasure to be here supporting you on the road to COP31. So, Excellencies and the many friends here in this room, the war in the Middle East is taking a terrible human toll across the region. Civilian suffering, lives torn apart, economies stalling. And the conflict's brutal social and economic impacts have spread like a pandemic to every nation as fossil fuel cost chaos squeezes household, business, and government budgets. The fossil fuel cost crisis now has its foot on the throat of the global economy and stagflation on the march. From this tragedy, an immense irony is unfolding. Those who fought to keep the world hooked on fossil fuels are inadvertently supercharging the global renewables boom. Last year, clean energy investment was set to be double that of fossil fuels. Solar generation was up 600 terawatt hours on 2024, a colossal increase, though the transition remains uneven. And this latest crisis has made the economic logic of renewables impossible to ignore. Renewables offer safer, cheaper, cleaner energy that can't be held captive by narrow shipping straits or global conflicts. Countries like Spain and Pakistan, rich in renewables, have been protected from some of the worst impacts of this crisis. That's why so many governments are pushing renewables plans into overdrive to restore national security, economic stability, competitiveness, policy autonomy, and basic sovereignty. Here in France, finance for electrification is doubling, and China, India, Indonesia, South Korea, Germany, the UK, and more have been clear that pushing forward with the renewables transition is a cornerstone of energy security. This is real momentum. We must harness it to accelerate a truly global shift so that when countries meet at COP33 to respond to the second global stocktake of climate action, they're closer to meeting the commitments made so far. That means governments taking care not to lock in fossil fuels long term as they deal with the current crisis, breaking the link between electricity prices and fossil fuels so that low-cost renewables bring down bills, and doubling down on international cooperation to turn global commitments into real economy results faster. Many developing countries want to embrace clean energy and climate resilience, but major barriers, including lack of finance and debt, are holding them back, and we must get finance flowing rapidly. That includes delivering the new collective quantified goal for climate finance in full and on time, and making the roadmap to 1.3 trillion a reality. And we must unleash the full power of the action agenda equitably in both the global north and south. This essential part of the Paris Agreement brings governments, companies, investors, and civil society together to turn commitments into projects across the real economy. Most immediately, we should focus on areas of greatest urgency and impact. On grids and storage, more investment is essential to taking us to the next level of the green energy transition. And slashing methane, an ultra-potent greenhouse gas, delivering fast climate benefits while saving money. We must also be laser focused on food security, protecting crop yields from climate shocks, as the war drives fertilizer shortages, threatening 45 million people with acute hunger this year. Coalitions of the willing are already forging ahead. Just this week, governments and civil society met in Santa Marta on fossil fuels. In key sectors right across the action agenda, COP31 in Turkey will provide a global stage to pick up the pace. We must seize this moment. We have no time to lose. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. And this is in this session, the last intervention comes from Mrs. Stephanie Pfeifer. We all talk about the importance of investment, right? Investment, and she is the CEO of the Institutional Investors Group on Climate Change. We heard a lot, we learned a lot from Mrs. Pfeifer in the last few years. Over to you, Stephanie.
Thank you very much, Executive Director, Excellencies, and dear guests. It's great to be able to speak here today, and I'm pleased to represent the IIGCC, which is a membership organization of around 400 investors across more than 20 countries. As we've heard, it's clearer than ever today that clean energy supports economic growth, resilience, and energy security. And investors see the transition to a decarbonized economy as one of the defining investment challenges of this decade, bringing both risks and opportunities that they need to manage in their portfolios. We've heard that the direction of travel is clear, with global investment in the clean energy transition far outpacing investment in fossil fuel supply. So the question is not whether the transition will happen, but how quickly and how effectively, and crucially, how COP31 outcomes can help accelerate this transition. For investors, policy visibility is critical to unlocking their private capital at scale. Investors are in a unique position to support real economy decarbonization, transition finance, and invest in climate solutions. But this can only happen in an enabling policy environment, one that aligns incentives and rewards long-term investment in clean energy and in climate resilience. So investors need clear, consistent, and credible policy signals about the long-term direction of travel. And this is especially important in a volatile geopolitical context, because they invest in projects with long-term investment horizons like clean energy infrastructure. COP31 can serve as a decisive platform to advance the energy transition by closing the global stocktake gap, the goals outlined under paragraph 28 of the first global stocktake, including tripling renewables, doubling energy efficiency, and a just transition away from fossil fuels, can guide countries towards greater energy security, enhanced resilience, and reduced exposure to volatile energy markets. But for many countries, these global goals are still not fully reflected in national climate plans. As we know, implementation remains uneven and ambition is not always translating into domestic targets and policy frameworks. Nationally determined contributions can give investors a clearer understanding of country-level risks and opportunities from the transition, increasing confidence in long-term investment. And alongside economy-wide targets, government need to set out detailed sectoral decarbonisation roadmaps, articulating the policies that underpin emission reduction pathways. Effective sector roadmaps are action-oriented and provide clarity on how current and future policies interact across sectors and different levels of government. And they should be reinforced by financing frameworks that articulate investment needs, actively de-risk projects where necessary, and help to crowd in private capital. We strongly support the use of a broad range of policy tools. This includes carbon pricing, but also enabling measures such as permitting and planning for grid expansion to enable investment in key electrification solutions. Now, as COP31 approaches, we would like to see governments, MDBs, investors, and businesses work together to accelerate the scale-up of clean energy investment, and also particularly in emerging markets and developing countries, because a failed transition in these economies would pose systemic risks to the global financial system, whereas a successful transition offers significant opportunities for growth, for value creation, and for shared prosperity. So I really encourage policymakers in the room today to support the ambitions of the COP30 and COP31 presidencies by prioritizing implementation through clear roadmaps, credible policies, and effective risk-sharing mechanisms that can help private capital to be mobilized with the right signals that will flow. Thank you very much for listening to me today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It is great to hear the investors' perspective here, that there is a aligning of views and expectations. Dear colleagues, with this, we are finishing the first part of our meeting, and now we are moving to the second part, where we are listening the views of key stakeholders, both Minister Kurum and Ambassador Jones mentioned, as well as other COP presidents, how important it is to get the